So inferring from these trees, we can actually look at homologous characters. Remember, the idea of a homologous structure tells me common ancestry. So if you share a common ancestor, homologous structures are going to be there and be the best sources for that phylogenetic relationship. Phylogeny is concerned with the evolutionary history and relationships. Homologous structures determines this phenology and helps us understand that. For instance, reading from left to right here, if I am interested in the homologous structure of mammary glands, I can actually group organisms who have mammary glands. So these are mammals. They're going to undergo lactation. That's the duck-billed platypus, cute little guy, weird little mammal. I'll talk about that. Kangaroo and beaver, these are all mammals. Well, they all share the homologous structure, mammary glands. And I can see that on that tree, that everything to the right of that structure, so even going on this branch to the platypus, going down here to the kangaroo, going to the right again, right here, the beaver. This is an in-group. I'll talk about that in a bit. My mammals, my out-group will be non-mammals. That's an iguana right here. Although if we go far back historically enough, there will be another ancestor that'll be shared between those organisms. Appreciate that I'm talking about mammary glands here, that homologous structure. I could also talk about hair. I focus on mammary glands. Appreciate that if you are looking at another homologous structure, so let's look at gestation here, that appeared here on the evolutionary timeline. Everything to the right is shared. That structure, so to the right of gestation is the kangaroo, and to the right over here is beaver. What I mean by gestation is actually giving birth to live young as opposed to laying eggs. You're gestating, you're housing that organism within your body, like we do. Appreciate that the platypus is not to the right of that homologous structure. Only kangaroos were and only beavers were in this image. But platypuses were to the right of mammary glands. So what that's telling me is that they have mammary glands, but they do not gestate. In fact, the platypus is a really weird mammal in that they do lactate. They do have mammary glands, but they actually lay eggs. They don't give birth to live young. They're still mammals since they have mammary glands. Okay, so everything to the right of the homologous structure, that organism will have it. Everything I said, kind of bringing back that concept of convergent evolution and how analogous structures will arise, not homologous structures with that concept. We do something called cladistics. So we're going further back in the evolutionary timeline to see a related ancestor. Well, you're making a clod. In cladistics, organisms are grouped using those phylogenetic trees based on shared characteristics derived from one ancestor. So you're making what's known as a clod. So I have my pointer over here. A clod is a group of organisms that come from an ancestor. That ancestor, all the descendants are those organisms that you're considering. It's a branch from the tree of life, those phylogenetic trees. You're making a clod. Let me actually show you some clods over here. I've actually color-coded different clods in this phylogenetic tree. And in this tree, it's different from the other images I've been showing you. You don't have to have a tree from left to right like I've been showing you. This one's actually from bottom to top, as we're going from an ancestor to a more modern organism. Or we can see that it's more broad over here, and then the descendants from that organism are over here on the tree. So these clods are color-coded, these different boxes. I have 4. I have a yellow clod, a blue clod, a green clod, a red clod. The yellow clod is actually showing you guys these 2 different branches from this common ancestor right here, those 2 branches. Or I can also say the characteristics being shared in that yellow clod, all being considered. On the other side, this red clod over here is not part of that yellow one. I might be considering a different organism or different characteristics. Depends on what you're considering to make up the clods. Over here, let's say I want to consider this guy right here on the timeline. Well, his or her branches over here, the descendants make up the red clod. I can see how it's different from the yellow clad because this guy had different ancestors. I have to go further back here, for instance, this common ancestor, to consider all those branches, all those descendants. That's the green clad, this green box, all these descendants over here, 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 and then to the right as well. That's the green clad, all the descendants from this ancestor. So there's some terms I want to discuss. These are known as in-groups and out-groups. So it depends what you're considering. Let's say I'm looking at this phylogenetic tree on the left side, and I am showing you right here, this red box is showing you a common ancestor of A and B. A and B are known as the in-groups. That's what you're considering. Since you're considering this guy, this ancestor, all the descendants make up that clade. That's called the in-group. You're actually analyzing taxon A and taxon B. You wouldn't be analyzing anything going backwards from that branch because you want the descendants. You have to go further back to include taxon C. Taxon C is not included for this ancestor. It is for this ancestor, but we're not considering this guy. We're considering this guy. So taxon C is known as the outgroup. It's the species that have diverged before the lineage that you're considering being studied. So in-group is what you're considering, that clade, and out-group is everything outside of that clade. Let's actually consider cladistics in this poll. Question: according to the figure, cladistic analysis indicates crocodiles are more closely related to birds than to lizards. True or false? As you're answering this, I want you to see that crocodiles are right here on the evolutionary timeline. This is a phylogenetic tree, left to right. Lizards are located right above it, right here. And then down here after dinosaurs, we have birds at the very bottom. So when I first asked this question, and students are able to change their answers in poll, the answers are all over the place. The correct answer is true, A. Let's discuss why. I will tell you that I did mention in the lecture, just because lizards are located closer up and down, look how close those are, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're more related than these other guys. Don't do that. It's okay, right above it, or oh, right below it, so they must be more related. No, we actually have to form a clade. Let's look at how that tree is branching. Let's look at the ancestors. So I'm going to use a clade to help me define the relatives. Okay, so this is the same image in the poll. I'm just showing you in a color image to further answer that. I'll go back why that's true, that birds are more related to crocodiles and lizards. There's a common ancestor highlighted in green here. This common ancestor, everything to the right of that common ancestor is related. Crocodiles are shown there. If I go to the other branch, I've got dinosaurs. If I go to the other branch, I have more dinosaurs, and I have birds. I went to crocodiles, dinosaurs, and birds. Notice that I didn't go to lizards and snakes. They do not share this common ancestor. They are not to the right of that organism on the timeline. Crocodiles, dinosaurs, birds make up my in-group, my clade, considering that ancestor on that timeline. Because lizards and snakes do not share that ancestor, they are the out-group. I would have to go even further back in the evolutionary timeline here, for instance, go back a number of years right here to find the common ancestor between lizards and snakes and crocodiles to the right. They do share this ancestor. They don't share this one. But because birds share this one with crocodiles, they are more closely related than lizards and snakes. So again, just don't see, okay, they're located up and down from each other. It has to do with the branching of the tree and the ancestors / homologous structures that are shared in the clade.